All right, so I've been curious about this for a while because I know like we domesticated cats, you know. Obviously, everybody knows that like tigers and lions and shit all became little kitties in our houses, and just like wolves and shit became these cute beauties. So I was kind of curious, and I mean, this video popped up how we domesticated cats twice. So let's figure out how we ended up getting some cute ass kitties.
When a team of French archaeologists landed on the island of Cyprus in 2001, they quickly found that they were outnumbered. Despite having a population of about 1.2 million people, Cyprus turned out to have an even bigger population of cats. By some estimates, as many as 1.5 million felines, including both pets and feral cats, roam the country. You can find them practically everywhere.
So like the same
Cyprus
amount of people?
is an island in the Mediterranean. And if you've ever tried to give a cat a bath, you know that most of them aren't big fans of water. The closest mainland is Turkey, about 70 kilometers away. So how did all those cats get there? Well, those French archaeologists might have found the answer. While excavating a site of an ancient settlement, they discovered something quite surprising. It was the grave of a man who was buried alongside offerings of flint tools, seashells, and an 8-month-old cat. Dating to around 9,500 years ago, this burial represented some of the oldest known evidence of human-cat companionship anywhere in the world, predating the more well-known love of cats in ancient Egypt by 4,000 years. But when did this close relationship between humans and cats start? Who were the ancestors of domesticated cats?
I bet. Oh, I mean, he already said it, like offerings, like shells and shit. I bet that cat. Oh, that's so fucking. Did they really find that? Like, how? That's so crazy. That's like adorable as fuck, but at the same time, that's like. And the kitty stayed there with him? 8 months, too, only. Poor kitty. How did they find out the age, too? What the hell?
Cats. And how did humans help cats take over Cyprus, and eventually the world? For that, we can thank the complex process known as domestication. And yes, even though we let them poop inside our houses and knock stuff off our counters and pee in the laundry basket for some reason, we did domesticate them, even though it might not always feel like it.
Kitties are so cute.
Today's domesticated cat is its own species, known as Felis catus. And we can trace its origins to a species of wild cats called Felis sylvestris, which is made up of 5 different subspecies. Based on studies of the genomes of modern house cats, one subspecies, called Felis sylvestris libica, is the direct ancestor of all domesticated cats today. And those wild cats, often referred to as African wild cats, can still be found across North Africa and Southwest Asia. And as you could tell, these ancestral cats don't look very different from their domesticated descendants. They're slightly larger, and they don't have the color variations in their coats that we see in house cats. Instead, they mostly have what are called mackerel tabby patterns, with stripes that run perpendicular to their spines. You can even find the same pattern in the cats depicted in ancient Egyptian artwork. Now, these wild kitties are solitary creatures. They don't have the same social structure that other animals like wolves do. So scientists think that the domestication of cats was probably a different process from the domestication of other animals.
That looks like Saint.
But unfortunately, the fossil record of African wild cats
My family got hella cats.
Most haven't been preserved well enough to be used in genetic analysis, which is partly why it's been so hard to figure out how cat domestication actually worked. Some of the oldest known fossils include specimens from Cyprus that are about 11,000 years old, and others in Turkey from around 10,000 years ago. So how did we get from Felis sylvestris libica to Felis catus? Well, you know how hard it is to get cats to do stuff. It took a long time. And we still don't have the full picture, but the first step is understanding the different ways in which animals can be domesticated. A species is considered to be domesticated when it becomes genetically and permanently modified through human-influenced breeding. And it has to be reliant on humans on some level, like for food and shelter, or to clean out the litter box. And American archaeologist Dr. Melinda Zader has proposed that there are 3 pathways to domestication.
That's crazy that we tame so
pathway,
much.
The directed pathway, and the commensal pathway. In the prey pathway, wild animals are first hunted by people. Then, in order to better control the hunts, people begin to manage herds of the animals, like goats and cattle. This leads to captive breeding and eventually domestication of the species. With the directed pathway, people use lessons they learned from previous attempts at domestication, often through the prey pathway. Horses and beasts of burden, like donkeys and camels, were most likely domesticated this way. We fast-tracked their domestication to harness their abilities to walk long distances and carry heavy loads. And finally, in the commensal pathway, wild animals are attracted to human settlements by food. They go where the people go, feeding off their scraps, or on prey that may have also been drawn to the humans, like mice or rats. And this eventually leads to domestication. This is probably how cats were domesticated. For thousands of years...
So they just come up to us for food and we're like chill, and then they're like, hey, this dude's nice. That it? I thought it meant like, you know, I thought they had to like fucking capture a tiger and then, you know, like wrestle it into like a not a coliseum, but like a big old area, and then be like, be a good kitty, and then have a baby, and then that baby is a little more nicer to the people, but it's probably like, you captured my parents, blah blah blah, and then they have kitties, and then those kitties are like, I mean, you guys have been nice to us for like 3 generations, and then so on and so forth, and it's like, all right, bro, like, you guys just wanted to make us friends. I don't know. I didn't think it was just like, they kept coming up and they didn't really have no beef, or sometimes like people just gave them food and they were like, hey, that means they understand. Well, I mean, they are smart as fuck, but yeah, that would mean that they are smart to some level, and they always have been. Boy, you chewing on my chair? Don't do that. But yeah, that's fucking wild. So that just means that I still don't even get the horses and stuff. I don't know how. He said we tamed all of them. I mean, these I can understand, like getting them in a group and shit, and then kind of just, they're all together. They see you don't harm them, and you're giving them food, so they're probably like, yeah, chilling. But the horses and stuff, I don't know. I feel like they'd be, but horses are really smart, aren't they? I don't know, bruh.
For thousands of years, they stayed close to human dwellings for food, but weren't necessarily close to the people themselves. But eventually, people noticed that cats were actually pretty good at catching the pests that were plaguing their food stores, and began to actively entice them to live in their settlements. And we can get glimpses into this process by studying the remains of ancient kitties. For example, isotopic analysis of cat remains from 5,600 years ago in northwestern China has revealed trace amounts of millet, a staple grain in the diet of the human villagers there. This suggests that cats were eating the mice that were feeding on stored millet, no doubt a useful service for the villagers. And the isotopic data from one cat revealed a diet that had less meat and more millet than expected, suggesting that it either scavenged from or was fed by the villagers. Aw. So what did domestication as a process do to change wild cats into house cats? Well, physically, domestication has made house cats smaller than their ancestors and resulted in new varieties in coat color and patterning. These included new variations of the tabby coat and the introduction of black, orange, and white colors. Most of these coat changes are fairly recent and came about as recessive genes in wildcats became more prominent. Then, by the 19th century, we think, people started to selectively breed for more variation in markings and colors. But beyond size and color, domestication didn't really change the morphology of cats that much, compared to, say, dogs, which have seen major changes in their whole bodies. This is mostly because of differences in breeding practices, as different dog breeds were bred for specific purposes.
I was gonna say, dude, that's so weird with crossbreeding and stuff. Like, taking certain attributes of one race or, like, species and then adding it to another just to create, like, it's kind of like making minotaurs out of animals. Like, it's so weird. But like the dogs, like, they have all kinds of crazy, like, they have Chihuahuas up to Great Danes. Like, what? And then some of them are like super duper hairy, and then some of them obviously don't have any hair at all. Well, not obviously have no hair, but like have really short hair, I don't know. Animals are so crazy. I wonder what like, if all animals were kind of like cross species, I wonder what they would create. Like, if you took everything, including humans, if you took everything and made it into one, I wonder what that would make.
Modern cats also maintain more genetic and behavioral similarities with their wild ancestors than most other domesticated animals do, including behaviors related to eating and breeding. This is probably because of interbreeding between domesticated cats and surrounding wild cat populations. But the thing is, wild cats are actually thought to have been domesticated twice. Once in Southwest Asia about 10,000 years ago, and again in Egypt about 3,500 years ago. This is based on an analysis of the genome of modern cats, which suggests that 2 different source populations contributed to the current gene pool at 2 different times. And we've also found archaeological evidence that supports multiple points of domestication. For example, in Egypt, 6 burials have been uncovered at the site of Hierakonpolis, containing 2 adult cats and 4 kittens, and they date to between 3,600 and 3,800 years ago. Their smaller bones closely match the size of those in domesticated cats, and one cat's skeleton even showed healed fractures, suggesting that it was cared for by its human companions. After about 3,000 years ago in Egypt, we begin to see these relationships becoming closer through art and iconography that show cats alongside people. And from there, it looks like cats were brought to Rome by early Greek settlers, as well as through interactions between Rome and Egypt.
Yo, imagine being like Egyptian, kind of like, like walking through the sand in your little toga or whatever, and you walk inside a pyramid, and then you got like fucking like, yeah, they're domesticated, but back then they're probably still pretty huge. You know, like I'm saying, like the size of dogs. So you're probably like half of a tiger. You know. So you're probably like walking by, and you got like a few of them jumping around the pyramid, fucking walking around you. You know, you got some of them that come up to you like trying to like give me some loving, but then you got other ones that like come up to you and they're like trying to fucking like slap you and shit. Like that'd be cool. And then like being one of those Egyptian like pharaohs or some shit that has like two tigers sitting behind him or sitting at his feet while he's like chilling on his throne. Like, yo, what up? But shit.
Civilizations began
Cats
to
are
expand
cool.
around 2,000 years ago, especially within the Roman Empire. Cats followed as well. We know ancient Romans kept felines as pets based on artworks like mosaics that show cats in domestic settings, often hunting prey.
That boy
Roman
looks
cats were most
scared.
likely adopted into households to catch rodents and other pests, much like they did in the early stages of domestication. But none of this actually tells us where the story of cat domestication started. After all, if the oldest evidence of domestic cats is on the island of Cyprus, then who brought the cats to Cyprus in the first place? Well, all we know is that at some point during the early Holocene epoch, possibly 11,000 years ago, people from
The early
Southwest Asia
what? The early what? Holocene? What the hell is that?
epoch, possibly 11,000 years ago, people from Southwest Asia began to migrate to Europe, including Cyprus. And they brought with them that subspecies of cat that was the ancestor of our domesticated cats. And cats being cats, we just ended up with millions of the little guys. In modern-day
yeah.
Cyprus, the cat population has boomed to the point of being considered an infestation. Cats are often seen as vermin, and there have been many attempts to try to get a handle on
They
their
are not
growing
vermin.
population. Luckily for the feral cats, though, there are many sanctuaries run by volunteers who try to care for every stray.
That one
But
got
it's
an
not
eye
just on
booger.
this island where cats have commanded such a presence. Our relationship has been mutually beneficial enough that domestic cats have truly taken over the world. Today, their estimated overall population is 600 million. Cats
That's
have
not too
achieved
much.
world domination. But if it wasn't for us, they might never have left Africa or Asia. We carried them to places they otherwise might never have seen. So maybe our pet cats should treat us with a little more respect? Mine could have started by not peeing on my laundry, but I loved him anyway.
That means you didn't do his litter, boy. But that's fucking crazy, dude. I did not know that they just kind of just started becoming our friends. I thought we had to like go through a taming process. But all that means for me is that I'm gonna go get a tiger soon. I'm gonna go see one in the wild, and I'm gonna be like, yo, here's some food, take it. And then he'll be like, hey, I appreciate you. And I'd be like, don't mention it. And I'd be like, so you got a place? And I'd be like, yeah. What's up? But I mean, yeah, that was pretty interesting. Now I know how to tame a cat, and so do you. See ya.